On today's episode, how to deal with online haters. This is 30-minute music marketing.
Cue title sequence. Boom.
30-minute music marketing for musicians who want to get better at marketing their music.
Hi, I'm Greg.
Hello, I'm Sheldon, and this is 30-minute music marketing, the show for independent artists and DIY musicians who want to get better at marketing their music, which is you, hopefully. I'm sure it is. I'm sure you want to get better. Everyone wants to get better. I've been doing this ages, and I want to get better each and every week, and that's one of my tasks.
Me too.
I like feeding you with information, whether it's on the Facebooks, on the YouTubes, or on the podcasts. And if you're listening on a podcast, hi, give us a review on whatever chosen podcast platform that you listen to us on.
And smash that subscribe button on YouTube.
Yes, please.
That encourages us to do more content.
It does indeed. The more the view counts and subscribers go up, the more excited we get each and every week to record our little bits and bobs.
Do you think it's worth us creating a Patreon? Or is that up in
No. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you a couple of quid.
Oh, thanks.
Just to keep your morale going. Now, last week's episode was a full episode about all the things that you need to know before you run a Facebook ad. Now, we were going to follow it up immediately with actually showing you how to start executing adverts. However, we want to do it as a real-life example. So I was going to use...
We're going to do it for real.
We're going to do it for real, man.
There's no faking here.
However, the video that we're going to use in terms of the timescale that we're recording this is only going to go out tomorrow. Yeah. And for me, it needs to be a published video. So what we're going to do is, I think, a day or so after it's actually out in the wild, then we're going to start running an advert around it. So this is a bit of a filler episode, but it does sort of lead on in some respects, because we're talking about the online haters with a Z, all those people, all those keyboard warriors.
Those trolls.
Sitting in their mum's basement, getting joy and pleasure out of basically winding people up. Now, the thing is, it's an unfortunate fact of life. It would be great if everybody was peaceful and harmonious on the internet. But as anyone who's ever been in a public domain, which is obviously if you're on YouTube and if you have social media channels, it's going to be a fact of life. And what you tend to find is the more of a higher profile that you obtain as a musician,
the more grief you're going to get.
Quite possibly.
There are a lot of lonely, angry people out there.
There are. We should feel sad for them in some respect.
I'm going to show empathy.
Well, that could be one of the things we're discussing. Don't give the game away.
Sorry, I'm just looking at the sheet behind the camera.
So, what I would say is that if you start to run Facebook ads, what you're doing is that you are inserting your music into other people's news feeds, which some people might find intrusive. And it's also, it is going to generate more music discovery than probably has happened on that music platform than ever before. And some people might not take kindly to that.
Can we use one of your favourite bands, the example of U2? Even though it wasn't really any fault of U2, it was the fault of Apple.
Yeah. They did get I wouldn't have liked to have been their social media manager for that particular period. So
we only sold 100 million copies. Come on, what can we do?
So what we're going to do is we're going to discuss some potential strategies if you start to receive any sort of hate,
grief.
That's a very good word. Grief online,
jealousy.
Maybe some suggestions as to how to deal with it. Maybe point number one could be just ignore it. Some people only tend to do this for a bit of attention.
So it's a bit like...
It is funny, yeah. The one thing I was going to mention is, and this is probably as we go on to discuss in the second point, as I found from actually trying to speak to some of these people, some of them, they're really only doing it just to try and get a bit of a rise out of you.
So they're not all sadistic, horrible people.
But I mean, it could well be that if somebody leaves a derogatory comment on one of your social media posts, just ignore it. Right?
Can I ask a quick question though? In terms of this, ignoring it. So say for example, you don't engage in a response, but you don't want that comment to stay there. Is deleting it still rising to their bait?
Possibly, but the thing about your social media platforms, whether it's like Facebook or Instagram, that's your property. That's the equivalent of somebody coming in to your particular, opening the gate and shouting abuse. I think there's a difference between shouting abuse from the street and actually coming into your yard.
And putting a sign
abuse
up that says, I'm rubbish.
Yeah.
Right.
So it could, all right, so the thing that I was going to say is, who is name one of your favourite musical artists. I know who you're going to say already, but...
One of my favourite musical artists... I'll just use BT.
I knew you were going to say BT. If anybody's reading on the... right, so if you're on the BT Facebook page, BT's released a new single and he's got like a video for his new single.
Yeah.
And one of the comments underneath it is, God, this is a load of rubbish. BT has been absolutely terrible since 1995.
Yep.
I was going to say 8. Sorry, Brian. And the thing is, if you love that particular track, that wouldn't sway you or change your opinion in any way. You'd just go,
to be honest,
well, they're wrong.
Are we talking as me as a fan of BT?
You as a fan of BT.
Well, the funny thing is, in this kind of respect, you do see it sometimes. You do see a load of people who will then kind of rally against that troller and say, obviously, I mean, you don't know anything kind of stuff. And yeah, I mean, I'm quite comfortable. If somebody wants to diss someone that I like, then when I was younger, you'd really take these things to heart. But as I've got older, I just like, it's not going to bother them. It's not going to bother me. It's the case, all it's showing is showing a lack of knowledge and experience and exposure to that artist.
But a lot of artists would probably think that if somebody is leaving derogatory comments within their social media channels,
then it's bad for business.
Then it's bad for business and would somehow affect the opinions of people who already like you. I think that is definitely not the case. You're fine in that respect. So if you want to just leave it, fine. I think Facebook gives you the option to hide a comment. It's not even necessary to delete it, because I think that comment will then still be visible to the person who posted it and their friends who probably wouldn't like you anyway. And as I say, you can choose to leave it. Strangely enough, I actually hid a comment this morning. We'll maybe talk about why I hid it rather than...
Are you going to comment on what? Are you actually going to comment on the comment?
I am. I'm just going to...
You're not even going to say what they said?
It wasn't particularly...
Come on.
No. I've obviously forgotten what it was.
But if you're going to ignore it, then you won't have a problem saying it, because you won't bear any relevance to it. But go on, what did they say?
The phone might be off.
Disappointed.
Yeah, it was like, oh, that's disappointing. It hurt a little, but then you just move on. Okay, so ignoring it, hiding it, not giving them the oxygen of publicity. They've had their say. That's fine. Let's not, potentially get into any further entanglement.
Well, that's the thing, because you can't. It's almost like you're trying to convince everyone to like you, and you can't.
You can't necessarily.
And so I would be like, yeah, of course. I mean, I've got into stuff where you want to have the last word, and I especially like to have the last word.
He does. Yes.
And you just kind of, is it really, your time is better off spent doing something more creative and constructive than trying to persuade someone, dispersuade someone that you're rubbish, because they've made their mind up. It doesn't matter who you are. And people like really well know, will hate, how much shit grief does, I'll have to bleep that out. How much grief does...
I think we can get away with this word.
Does Taylor Swift get?
Oh, can you imagine?
And
any superstar international artiste.
And think how much grief Right Said Fred got when Taylor Swift used one of their songs. I mean, they must have sold right out.
Anyway, we're deviating. So point number one could just be ignore, leave well alone. They've had their say. They've had their moment. Let's move on with the rest of our lives. Option number two could be to maybe try and show a little empathy. Now, be the better person, Greg. That's the thing. Be the better person. And just respond in a way that maybe says, oh, okay, that's your opinion. One of my tacts would be, I appreciate our music, that the music we produce isn't necessarily for everyone. A lot of our fans like it. Don't worry about it. Have a good day. that sort of thing. And kill people with kindness. You know, if people aren't kind to you in the first instance, well, why not pay them back with a little bit of kindness and a little bit of empathy and show them how it should be done? And as I was saying before, the thing that I've found is that some people, I don't know why this is, but they like to try and get a ruse out of people. They like to prod and just go, I wonder what will happen if I say this. They don't necessarily mean it. And I've had several instances. I've got one written down on a piece of paper.
Yep.
Right, this is an actual conversation that we had, and I can't remember what I was doing. I might have been running a particular advert, or someone had shared one of our popular videos,
Yep.
and someone else had seen it. And it started off going, OMG, this is awful. So it's not a good start. So I said, it's no worries. We draw a crowd, and what I did was, there's a great picture that I have of us performing at a particular festival. There's about 12,000 people in the crowd. So it's like, don't get started on me, don't criticise my music, because, you know, quite a lot of people like it. It says, we have a laugh, everyone has a great time. To which they replied, good for you. And I replied, cheers, have a great weekend. And he went, you too, and he used that emoticon where he blew me a kiss. So he's gone from, oh my God, this is awful, and he ends the conversation with, you know, have a great weekend, kissy kiss kiss. Whereas if I'd gone, well, if I'd stormed in with my bother boots, going, you don't know anything about music, you, and then that could have antagonised the situation. So if you go in, I mean, and you're not going to turn around everybody, but show, you know, if nobody can show kindness to you, maybe if you show kindness to someone else, that's adding pluses where potentially there might have only been minuses.
You had people who started off really negatively and then wanted to come and see one of your shows.
Yes, this is the other anecdote.
Oh, right, go on.
So somebody started a conversation with a sort of, oh, this is absolutely terrible. And again, I do that. Don't worry, you know, our music isn't for everybody. The thing is, music really isn't for everybody.
No.
It is polarising, and maybe as a younger person, I would have been a little bit more.
I do think age
does mellow one.
Because it's almost like you feel that it's a criticism of you.
Yes.
Rather than just something I'm interested in.
Yes. I sometimes look back at, you know, the Facebook memories from like 10 years ago, thinking, I was an angry young man. I mean, he wasn't even young, but it's like, what were you getting so upset about?
Well, this is the thing I was saying about, you know, with Zach, who used to work here, and he's like, and I used to be like him, and I look at him and how he defends his music and stuff, and you kind of go, man, I must have wasted a lot of time and energy defending something now that I'm just like, I like it, you don't like it, so what? There's enough artists for us all to like.
Yeah. So this particular person said, this music's rubbish. I was saying, don't worry, you know, our music isn't for everybody. And so I said, what music do you like?
Ooh, straight back with it, yeah.
And this, because that's the thing. If you can get them maybe to talk about the stuff that they like, then at least they're in a good zone. And I think it might have been something like U2, and it was like, oh, I really love U2, and I talked about the last U2 concert. That
so you suddenly engaged in a point of reference.
A point of reference.
Oh,
We were on the same ground. You know, we had common interests. And there might have been a couple of other quick exchanges, and then that particular person says, oh, my nephew likes you. He normally comes to see you when you play Berry. If you're on sometime in the future, I might come and see you. So it started off the conversation that I hate you and I think you're rubbish. I politely engaged with him, found a point of reference, was chatting to him, realised we actually had something in common that we didn't necessarily know in the first instance. And by the end of it, he's like, oh, I'll come and see you. And again, if I'd have waved him with the old bother boots and said, you don't know anything about music, you're rubbish, I'm going to ban you, then who knows what would have happened. So it maybe
the
just
outcome would have been very, very...
The outcome would have been
very different.
Entirely different. So work on the basis that maybe people are sometimes provocative when they don't necessarily need to be salty, is the expression that people tend to use these days for being a little bit feisty and a little bit, antagonistic and proddy. For the people listening to the podcast, I'm prodding Greg whilst doing so.
And what I'm doing is not reacting.
Yeah, that's very good. Point number one. Well done. So that's one way to do it. I'm not saying everybody will be turned around, but again, if you show a little bit of kindness, you're paying it forward and basically not lowering yourself
And I suppose even if you can't turn them around, which I suppose isn't really what the intention was, it was more just to kind of engaging. But, they'll just bother someone else, so...
And the third thing maybe, which sort of takes into account maybe points 1 and 2, is look at it not as a negative point. Consider it more, a badge of honour. You've reached a certain point in terms of career hierarchy that you're a big enough artist now to be commented upon. It's a strange way of looking at it, but...
I mean, there's certain well-known politicians of both sides of the Atlantic who almost deny any existence of the criticism and probably do think of it as a badge.
Yeah. So think along the lines of, if you're getting occasional negative comments, you must be at a certain stage that new people are discovering you. So you must be doing something right. It's only, again, what was it Oscar Wilde said, all publicity is good publicity. There's nothing worse than being talked about, and that's not. But the only thing worse than I'm not doing it very well. It's basically saying that
we'll find the quote and put beneath it.
If no one's talking about you, then
you're doing something wrong.
You're doing something wrong.
I suppose it's the same if your music is in exactly the same place that you left it, then no one knows about it.
Exactly. One final thing to maybe sound off on is that obviously there is a certain type of commenter who will post the exactly sort of the comment that we don't really want to see. It could be racist, it could be sexually explicit, and for those sorts of things, don't engage them in any way, shape or form. Block and report, move on.
I mean, you should see some of the posts on the Haydock selling group. Some of the stuff has nothing to do with Haydock on Facebook. Yeah.
Oh, I might have to join that.
It's just like...
So yeah, I think the main takeaway from this is empathy is the key, and it's just a general good thing to have. Just think of it, as I say, like it's a fact of life. There's always going to be idiots. Show them a little bit of love, a little bit of kindness. See if you can turn them around. If you can't, just ignore them and move on. And if anybody wants to send us any salty comments like Greg's hat isn't very good, or
and it's only because I need a haircut.
Oh, right. I had my cut last week.
I
think I'm a little bit bushy at the front, which is good, because for in a few years' time, those follicles won't be there. But no putting any derogatory comments about my receding hairline. That would send me over the edge and have me crying into the comments. But maybe if you do, maybe I'll show you some empathy. I see what I've done there. Bringing it all round. So the next episode should be a deep dive, and we'll have a look at how to create and assemble a Facebook audience to run an advert to, and we'll actually do an actual advertising campaign. We'll start one off, and I think that'll be the next ep.
So smash that subscribe button.
Thanks very much for watching / listening, and we will see you next time.
Thanks very much. Bye. Ta-ta.